So James is still talking about a forgotten kingdom.
Yeah, there've been a lot of them. This is a particular one. It was a kingdom for a while, and then it became something like a tributary state to the Hittites and the Assyrians. I don't think the Egyptians ever got there much. They might have got there to take tribute and things like that. So, of course, you should be skeptical about what anyone says, including me. I've got to be skeptical about what I say to myself. And I hope some of you are thinking, well, like, there's got to be proof in the ground for all this catastrophism and disaster stuff. Now, when it comes to, I'm reading a book about mammoths. It was put out in 2001, as I recall. And I'll be reviewing it. It's quite short. It's 170 pages, and I've already gone through more than half. But, they're talking, this is in 2001, they're talking about alternative explanations for what took out the mammoths and related, and not so related, large species of animals, mammals in particular. Mastodons. In North America, maybe that's when the saber-toothed tiger went down. So that's what they call tigers, lions, tigers. Anyway, what were the three theories that were being bandied about? One was plague, like Ebola or something. One was kind of like the idea that they were hunted.
The mammoths?
Yeah, to death. And not just here, by natives with Clovis points, big, clunky kind of things, but in places like Siberia and stuff like that. And I'm going, what the hey, come on, that's so stupid. And then the third one was I think they called it overchill thing, which is, it's a little bit hard to explain. I'll be able to explain a little bit better, but it's ridiculous. They did devote one page out of part of one page, 170 pages, to what wiped out the dinosaurs and possibly what ended even more species, like sea-dwelling species and stuff like that. I think it's the end of the Permian. So the dinosaurs, it's the end of the Cretaceous. And they say they didn't venture anything for the Permian, I'm telling you. It's stunning. But for the Cretaceous, it's supposed to be a big, they call it a meteor impact. And I suspect it was actually a large comet that divided up into several different parts. And we found the remnant on the edge of I think it's the Gulf of Mexico, where it borders on the Yucatan. But, this shouldn't come as news to people, but 70% of the Earth's surface is water. And I said, they won't actually find the remnants of the things that hit the oceans because the oceans are newer. I think all of the ocean bottoms are newer because of things like, it's related to continental drift. You kind of get these motions of rock flows underneath the ocean, and they kind of go like that, and they get underneath the continents, they get ground up, and then they start again. So I don't think, I'd have to check and see, but I'm fairly certain that they wouldn't find any remnants of comets or meteor impacts on the bottom of the ocean. They do find ones for more recent stuff, but not for the Cretaceous area. That's supposed to be 65 million years ago. It wouldn't upset me terribly if it was 650 million years ago, 6.5 million years ago. Anything more recent than 6.5 million years, any estimate of that, I'd be I'd be very skeptical. I wouldn't be cynical about it, but I'd be very skeptical. So Bishop James Ussher's chronology of the world that dates back to 4,000 BC or something like that, roughly 6,000 years. That won't fly with me. Fly like a dodo. Now, are there records? There are records of impacts in more recent times than even these are impacts on the bottom of the ocean. From more recent than when these large fauna were extincted in the same time in Eurasia and in Asia and in North America. Presumably in South America too. But we find things even more recent. You don't know what they're looking for. They find the stuff. This guy's dating system, he's got a nice little chart in the back here. I mean, this is a very valuable. He's got a couple of charts. Comparative chronology here. There we go. It's all marked up with a revision.
Yes.
I've had this book for maybe a generation or something like that. And then there's a chronology, a shorter one. Much less interesting because it basically dates from the time when we're dating according to the Egyptian, the Assyrian dating system. And, well, that's reliable as far as I could tell. It's backed up by carbon-14 readings. Understand, the carbon-14 readings are radiocarbon readings. Radiocarbon readings do not support the Egyptian chronology. That's raw reading. When archaeologists or radiologists, whatever they're called, are working, carbon-14 experts are working for Egyptologists, or anywhere around the world, frankly, before roughly 500 BC, they will add dates to satisfy the Egyptologists. So to use that as a proof for the Egyptian chronology is called begging the question. And I call that sort of stuff, when it's that egregious, whining and begging the question, okay? So don't do it, because, I can put up with it when dogs do it, because dogs are nice and friendly, and they will whine and beg. But Egyptologists and stuff like that, when they're whining and begging the question, they're not, on average, they're not very nice people. They are pretentious, and they're arrogant. But when it comes to folks like me and other folks who are skeptical about their chronology, they're pretentious. They're giving the pretense of a knowledge that they don't have, or rather wisdom. They got lots of knowledge, actually more about Egyptology than I do. But when it comes to comparative chronologies, they've got nothing on it. There you go. It's you may be something, as Creedence Clearwater Revival sang maybe around 1970, but they ain't got nothing on me. Now, so for level 14 here, he's just got maybe 2-3 pages on it, level 14. And he calls it Jamdet Nasser. Jamdet Nasser is an interesting place. Believe me, the Assyriologist is going to find it interesting, and they should find it joyfully interesting, because the native name, Jamdet Nasser, is the modern Arabic name for this site, and the native name, way back when, thousands and thousands of years ago, is Kidnun. And that would be a Sumerian reading. What does nun mean? Divided into its component part. In. It's what's called a postposition. Some languages put words like in and on and at and by after the noun. They're used, you wouldn't say modify, but that they work with. So it means in kid. Now it's Sumerian. What is that word in Akkadian? A-K-K-A-D. Akkadian is a Semitic language. It's not related to Sumerian at all. Sumerian's not related to any language, as far as we know, living or dead. And it is A-K-K-A-D. So the Sumerians spelled it K-I-D. Does that mean that it's not the same word? Well, just how do the French get Londres, R-E-S, at the end of London? How do they do it? It's because you're going from one language to another. Get used to it. This is just the way things are, okay? Now, yeah.
So they wouldn't spell it K-A-D or whatever you said.
K-I-D?
Yeah, because those letters wouldn't exist for them.
No, it's probably just one symbol or something like that. It might be two. But the nun at the end would just be one symbol, almost for certain. It might be N-U-U-N. It could be K-A-K-I-I-D. I haven't seen it, but I just know how they transcribe it. And there you go. It's A-K-K-A-D. Fact is, when they put K-I-D, they're to a large extent guessing. It could be. They could have said A-K-K-I. Well, they wouldn't have put two K's together from what I've seen in Sumerian language, but A-K-I-D or something like that, or I-K-I-D, whatever. It's just that is it. The big trouble is, you see, he's got the Jemdet Nasser dated from 3100 to 2900 BC. The reason why it's dated that way is because of a guy called Sir, so-called Sir, called Flinders Petrie, and he was a dynastic racist. I've talked about him before. He was following the ideas, wild and crazy and wacky, racist. I don't like using that word too much. I don't like overusing it. This isn't racial prejudice, it's racism. This French guy was saying, like, there's no way civilization could have developed coevally in Egypt with Mesopotamia. It's got to come from somewhere else, because we're talking about Africa here. Understand, this was in colonial times, the height, the depth of colonial times. And so Petrie was scrambling around trying to find a European connection for the beginning of Egyptian history. And then he goes, oh, well, I'm going to have to settle for Mesopotamia. So he found some material in the middle of Egypt, weirdly enough, not in the northern part. That's obviously Mesopotamian. It has what they call Sumerian boats. And it would be around, Sumer was still in existence at that point in time. And it has Mesopotamian motifs. Hey, guy. Oh, he's excited. His crest is moving around a little bit. There we go, see?
I should show you. I'll try to get up with
I'll
getting him.
disappear so he doesn't. Yeah, he took off already.
No, he's... Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I see him. He's up in the far tree there. He got stirred up. There we go. But at any rate, he's around. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's great.
He's not notifying his friends. How much time have I got? 10?
More than that.
Oh, that's good. Because I got a lot of material, folks. Get ready. Fasten your seat belts. Fasten your chin straps. Hopefully you got some helmets on. And put in your mouth guards, because we don't want you biting your tongue and swallowing. What was that?
But my friend the chickadee's right here.
There we go. Yeah. I think he's up in the Scots Pine. That is Scots Pine. Anyway, 3100 to 2900 BC. Well, holy smoke. On a slightly inflated chronology for Mesopotamia, the Akkadian dynasty, and there weren't several, there was just one, is dated from, let's say, 2350 to, geez, I'm not sure exactly when it would be, maybe last a couple hundred years. Yeah, over 150. So let's say 1350 to 2200. I know they say 2350. And that's off by 150 years, but that's chicken feed by comparison with the Egyptologists, and really by comparison with what Sir Flinders Petrie on this Mesopotamian material. And it's obviously, people are going around saying, wow, it's amazing how many anticipations of Akkadian culture there are in this Jemdet Nasser stuff. Well, hold on a second. 3100 to 2900, they've got it ending 2900. They've got the Akkadian dynasty from the Assyriologists over in Mesopotamia, or working on Mesopotamian material, starting 2350 BC. By my calculations, that's 450 years. All of a sudden, you got this recrudescence, or maybe renaissance, of Assyrian, or rather Akkadian, or pre-Akkadian influences as they see it. No, it's Akkadian stuff. It's Akkadian stuff. They're off by that much. They're off by, what? They're off by 650 years, according to conventional Mesopotamian dating, which is off by 150 years. So basically, they're off by, when would the Akkadian dynasty have actually started? 2200 BC, I'd say. They're off by 900 years. And 750 if you accept the slightly inflated dating for Mesopotamian material. Absolutely shameful. Now, what they've got following is level 13. They recognize it's basically a continuation of level 14, which they date as Jim Dundas. It's actually Akkadian. What followed the Akkadian stuff in Mesopotamia? Sumerian, Ur-3 dynasty, third dynasty of Ur. And what happens at the end of the third dynasty of Ur is kind of funny. Now, I don't remember the exact details that are recorded in the Lamentation over Ur, which I think is basically fairly serious historical document, although many people, I suppose, would say, oh, it's legendary. It's got weird legendary things like fire in the land. I might be injecting one or two things from another place. Darkness in the land, cattle dying in the field, insects crawling all over. I think there's 4 of the 10 plagues of Egypt. Hold on, Mesopotamia is not Egypt. And it's a very different time scale because they date the Exodus, 10 plagues of Egypt, to roughly 1200 BC. They're way off. It's actually 1850 BC, roughly. 1850. But that's when the Ur-3 dynasty ended. In actual real terms. They say it's 2000, slightly inflated. Take 150 years off and you've got 1850 BC. Now let's see what happened. What's recorded down there is not rocks. It's not geology, it's archaeology, okay? Just put my glasses on. Like I say, fasten your seatbelts. Now, I'd had this book a while, and I didn't really discover the significance of this. So this is the end of levels 14 and 13. So I'm saying it's the end of the Ur-3 dynasty. It's just a long ways away from it. Because the Ur-3 dynasty is in present-day Iraq, and this is in the westernmost part, Al-Alak, westernmost part of present-day Syria. So there's kind of like 1.5 countries in between. 53. There we go. The level 14 temple, so that was, I'm saying that's Akkadian, as reused in level 13, and I'm saying that that's coeval. I'm not saying that, I'm saying the Akkadians actually conquered Al-Halak, and they went a whole lot further. They actually went into Egypt. That's the material that so-called Sir Flinders Petrie found in the middle of Egypt. It's Akkadian material there. They went way farther than this. They went past Lebanon or through it, past Israel or through it, past the Gaza Strip or through it, and through the Sinai, and past the Delta in Egypt, down to the middle part of Egypt, probably further south. The level 14 temple, so this is in Syria, very close to Antakya, I think it's pronounced, the classical Antioch. The level 14 temple, as reused in level 13, hadn't been destroyed by fire. Now, they're not saying hadn't been destroyed by fire. They're saying hadn't been destroyed by fire. We should have put the emphasis there. The whitewashed faces of the inner walls and of the facade, so facade is a facing in archaeological terms. So that's the inner walls and of the facade showed no trace whatsoever of burning. Now, that's not inside, okay? But the outer face of the southwest wall, and they're not saying southwest wall as opposed to the other walls, because here's the footnote. This was the only wall, apart from the southeast facade, of which the outer face was exposed by our excavation, so that I can speak only of that. But it is likely enough that the same is true of the back and other side walls. Okay? So the southeast wall is all exposed. But the outer face of the southwest wall had been burnt. Now, what was the nature of the burning? I discovered this in the interim. After I first read this book, I didn't realize the significance of what was going on. But I was reading, I archaeological report for Shubat Enlil. I think that means dwelling place of Enlil. It was kind of like a Sumerian god. But it wasn't in Sumer. It was like in, I think it's kind of like in the borderlands between Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. Somewhere around there, Shubat Enlil. And I found the same phenomenon and the same inability to explain it. But the outer face of the southwest wall had been burnt. The entire face. Entire face of the brickwork was smoke blackened. And sticking to it were numerous fragments of light brushwood. Same thing in Shubat Enlil. Basically a whole country away. Now these countries aren't as big as the United States, but they're fairly substantial. They're larger than Israel, for example. Okay? Iraq is a little bit smaller than Alberta. Alberta is quite large. Syria, I think, is larger than Iraq, so it might be the size of Alberta. That's a province I'm working from. Was smoke blackened, sticking to it were numerous fragments of light brushwood. Now, when you're starting a fire and you're wanting to destroy something, you put light brushwood. Hey, here's some tumbleweed. Not quite tumbleweed. They wouldn't have it there, I don't think. But here's some tumbleweed. Let's light it, and boy, oh boy, that's going to cause some major league damage. And we'll just put it on the outside, because he was saying there's no sign of burning on the inside. Of light brushwood, all completely carbonized. So there was a substantial fire, I think is what that means. It's not as though there was a little bit of brush there and a little bit of fire got going. All completely carbonized. The curious point was that fuel of that sort is not really fuel. We'll see why, okay? Fired in the open would make a fine blaze, but wouldn't set up any great heat. You know, like for heat you need, like I say, a big log or something like that. It would set up a blaze too. You see, what he says is set up a fine blaze, it would do a kapoof kind of light. But you wouldn't get heat out of it. Why would you destroy a place with something, you know, almost like the equivalent of tumbleweed? Fired in the open, make a fine blaze, but wouldn't set up any great heat, and certainly could do no harm to such massive walls. Remember, he was saying it was brickwork. As a matter of fact, the red discoloration due to fire didn't penetrate for more than half an inch into the brickwork, about that much. And that after the fire, the place had been carefully cleaned. There was no burnt wood at all lying on the ground. Well, you know, this is brushwood, okay, light brushwood. It all got carbonized. Why assume that this stuff was carefully cleaned? Long before we understood, oh man, the nature of the building, we had come to a conclusion. So it's a temple, right? So they didn't understand what it was at first. They just dig it down and they found some bricks. We come to the conclusion there was a ritual fire. Oh my God. It's the same thing they came up with independently many decades later, from what I understand, in Shubat Enlil. Just a ritual fire. Only on the outside of the building. And again, stuff that looked as though it had been blown there more than anything else. Okay? Blown there. Understanding the nature of the building, we've come to the conclusion this is a ritual fire intended to give the effect of destruction by fire. Why would you do that? Why not just destroy the thing or whatever? Why not just kick it over? Whereas really all that had happened was that the building was temporarily blotted out by a curtain of flame. Poof! And then the fuel is gone. A curtain of flame, and I believe that this is the true explanation. You can believe all you want, but it's not the true explanation. The brushwood is heaped up against the sanctuary walls and set alight, and so brushwood. And the old building was symbolically destroyed, after which work could go ahead without scruple. The ashes were swept away, the walls were cut down to the height of some 10 feet above the old floor. That's about 3 meters. Yeah, about 3. the old floor level, and then inside the rooms and round the outer walls, bricks were laid, the usual mud bricks in the mud mortar, till a solid platform was formed, incorporating all that was left of the former temple, and on the top of it the foundations of the new temple were laid. So that'd be the level 12. Now what we find in contemporary layers, like one occupation basically after Jimdat Nasser, in a place called Ur, and guess who excavated it? A guy called Leonard Woolley, and he was given the title Sir. And Ur of Chaldees. And what he found was he dug down, he got his fellaheen to dig down. He didn't do it himself, I don't know if he did much work. He was doing the brain work. But you know, his brain wasn't quite up to it. So he's digging down. I don't know how religious he was or whatever. Digging down, and he ran out of city or town or whatever you want to call it. It was a capital. And although he wouldn't have known what it was like, you know, like whether it was a capital at this point in time. When I say Ur 3 dynasty, there were times in between these dynasties of Ur where Kish was ruling over Mesopotamia. Different place. Ur's off near Basra, south, near the Persian Gulf. Kish was very close to present-day Baghdad, close to the ancient settlement of Babylon. And so he digs down, runs out of city. And he's got this intuition. And he tells his fellaheen to keep digging. And they probably thought he was nuts. Like mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the noonday sun and have us dig through stuff where there's no pots or anything like that, no skeletons, no brickwork or whatever. And after 9 feet, so that's roughly 3 meters. How much time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. He runs into more city again. And he was smart enough to realize that this layer of mud had been laid down by water. Now, when they run into layers like this, they assume it came from upstream. Why would you assume that? There was a woman at Columbia University, I hope she's still alive, around 2000. She's saying, I found a huge impact site at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, and it caused a tidal wave that hit Madagascar, and it was quite away from Madagascar. We'll say it was 100 feet high, but I think it was actually 100 meters high, the signs of the tidal wave. Now, what she's discovered, I don't know what her date for it is, right on the Persian Gulf, another impact site. And I'm predicting eventually, when they straighten everything out with radiocarbon reading and so on and so forth, and readjusting for Egyptologists, and readjust it to get raw readings again, they'll find out that that was laid down at the end of the Ur 3 dynasty. And you see, like this
there's not
disaster.
just one blue jay, there's 2.
Okay.
You can keep talking if you want. I'm just showing them.
This disaster happened all around the world.
I don't know if you can see the blue jays back there. There's one
hits.
hopping around the ground.
Maybe more than 10 pieces of a comet that hit the world in sequence, not all at the same time, hitting different places of the world. And so in places on the shoreline, there would have been, there were adjoining oceans that got hit. They suffer from tidal waves, huge tidal waves, stuff that you just can't imagine. And then inland, they'd be burning, because these things coming in have immense amount of kinetic energy, and when they impact, they would cause immense burning.